When I was thinking to getting a device, I was always debating whether to get an iPad or a MacBook. An iPad because of the stylus, and then back again to the MacBook because of the Pro apps. Pro apps like Final Cut and Motion, and just the system of using a computer. In this video, I want to give an in-depth review of the iPad Pro so you know what you're getting yourself into when you get one of these. An explanation of my workflow. Also, I want to give you some useful tips and a thought process to help you decide what to get, an iPad or a MacBook. The iPad when launched was a game-changing device, and it created a new market of product, a tool that was between the professional feel but not disruptive as the surface area of a MacBook, and bypasses the limitations of the iPhone's small screen size. The iPad sold well initially. Over the time, Apple's sales volume started to go down as every kid and adult that wanted to get an iPad for general web browsing and media consumption got it, and there was no reason for them to upgrade. This is in stark contrast to professionals that change their technology at most every 5 years. Seeing this, Apple came out with the iPad Pro marketed as a MacBook replacement for most people that wanted a more powerful iPad. It came with a keyboard and stylus and eventually getting a trackpad. This worked well for Apple as it opened the market for the iPad to a lot of different people doing pro work. With the stylus, it was good for students, and with the performance, many of the most demanding professionals found the iPad had a good or even better for their workflow than a Mac. The iPad that I have is a 2018 iPad Pro with an A12X chip. This is faster than some lower-end MacBooks at that time of launch. My iPad has 256 gigabytes of storage, which is a bit overkill as this is not my main device. Over the past years, the iPad has aged perfectly and has digitalized a lot of the work that I do, which means I've gone almost paperless with the iPad when doing school work. This after almost 2 years after buying the iPad and 3 years since it was originally released. The iPad still works fast, and the device gets me the school day with around 25 to 30 charge remaining at the end of the day. This, of course, is after leaving home with about 85 to 90% charge, so consider charging overnight. Having the iPad, I was very prepared when COVID caused lockdowns, and I could just directly download work from Google Classroom and work on it with the Apple Pencil and then hand it in. This system was smooth and efficient and reduced the chance of losing documents, although there is a new problem. Accidentally deleting files, but even when I delete files on the Note app, it just goes to the deleted files and I can just get that back. But just as your binder or analog file system, you do have to organize files on your iPad, and this is going to segue over to explain my file management system and how I use the iPad at school to get the most use out of it. For my schoolwork, I use Apple Notes because it's free, works well with Apple Pencil, it syncs with iCloud Drive, which means that the notes on my app will appear on my MacBook. I can access them there at around 80% of the time. Also, Apple Notes was the first thing that I used, so I naturally got used to it and based my workflow on it. The warning that I will give is with any app that claims to sync notes and stuff on your iPad and MacBook are not synced in real time because of the delay between the time you write a note down and the time it appears on the MacBook. So I don't recommend using the Notes app on your MacBook at the same time as you use it on the iPad, as it could cause a clash between the Mac and the iPad and stuff could be deleted. Although there are many other people who end up using this successfully, and it could be me that just needs to learn things properly. Overall, iCloud syncing works well when used properly, and I'm sure apps like Microsoft OneNote do a better job, and this is a place where Apple can improve on. There are many other free apps that I'm trying, such as I mentioned Microsoft OneNote, and they might be better, but I will not go into that because I'm not experienced with them at the moment. If you're interested in that, I will recommend you checking out other content on YouTube on that. For example, The Paperless Student, which is a great channel for learning how to go paperless with the iPad. How do files work in the Notes app? To add file icon on the bottom left, and then you can add a file. This you can name it, and I will call it as it is named, and then you can have your file pop up here. The next really useful feature is that you can put a file in a file, as I've done with my school file. I can just toggle the school file and all my subjects drop down below. And to put a file in a file, you must drag and drop the file such as the one that I have and the file that I've created, and then the file is now in a file. This system of nested files can add a file in a file in a file to do as much organization as you need. Next, say if you've gotten a handout and you want to do it on your iPad. Well, you can go to the camera buttons, press scan files, and then take the photo and then drag the corners to the dimension of the paper. Now I press this button down here, and then there you go, you have scanned the document in your file. To use your pencil, you just tap the pencil on the document and now you can do anything on here. It works with any document. Now a person asks, how do we download a PDF from the internet? To do this, I can just take this website for example, and we can first select the document. Now search from the share button. This share button is almost universal and it's almost often located at this top corner here. And look for the Store in Files tab. This allows you to store the document in your files. I recommend not directly sharing it to your notes as it saves the link not as a document that you can write with your Apple Pencil. Then save it as a designated file in your Files app. Then you can go to the Files app and then save it to your Notes app of choice. I will save it in Apple Notes. I press share, press notes, press save in, and I will save it in the notes folder. And then the file is there and you can write on it with the Apple Pencil. One thing I will mention is that Apple Notes does have grid paper, but you cannot zoom in. And for that reason, I use Microsoft OneNote for that. For someone new, this may seem all quite complicated, but I will tell you this thing is that it gets easier as you start using it, and it just becomes way better and way easier than using paper. It is quite a learning curve, but it is good in the long run. Just the fact that I can double tap the Apple Pencil and then that changes from a pen tool to eraser saves so much time searching for pens, erasers, highlighters, and worksheets. Although I was well organized when I did not use an iPad, the iPad was simpler when I got to it. The fact that one can find a name of a file or note very quickly through the search feature, that is if you name it properly, is amazing. Also, split screen is a wonderful tool when it comes to say that you have a page of notes on one side and a page of work on the one side. From the bottom onto the side, shape it the way that you need it and there you go. You will not spend all the time just flipping pages back and forth. It is one of those small things that makes a difference between digital and analog. Similarly, you can bring in Safari and all the other apps. It just makes it such a useful device and saves a lot of time. Overall, this is my brief explanation of my productivity system on iPad. Now with all that said, it comes to what to get, an iPad or a MacBook. When deciding between getting a Mac or an iPad, anyone that needs a stylus should get the iPad. There are all sorts of apps and tools that graphic designers can interact with. A pencil, when compared to a Mac's trackpad, is such a better tool. Now, for the first thing that I recommend asking yourself is, what kind of person are you? Are you a tech nerd that likes to deal with technology? Or are you the person that is used to using a mobile iOS device? Or are you the person that is more traditional and just wants something to work? And keep this in mind as I go through the different use cases. If you are the person that wants something basic that can do web browsing, email, signing documents, the type of stuff that a computer is for, then consider getting an iPad as it can do the job well. And if you are familiar with iOS, the transition to the iPad is less cumbersome. If you are a person that is doing pro work, then it depends on your workflow. There are many things that the iPad can do now that it was not able to do a year ago. And there are many things that already work on iPad great, if not even better than getting a Mac. As of now, the iPad OS 15, you can make apps on the iPad with Swift Playgrounds. The second thing is that you cannot use Logic on the iPad. If you don't know what Logic is a program for professionals for music production. And if you're into professional music, then I recommend not getting an iPad. However, you can do professional work such as video editing, professional photo editing, and coding. And CAD work for engineering, drafting, design, because there is plenty of code editors, CADs, and design apps available available on the iPad. If your workflow falls into the stuff that works, then it depends on if you want the iPad form factor or if you're comfortable with the learning curve that comes with the iPad. Things like how to use those apps that work with it and learning how the iPad works in general, and it can take some time depending on how entrenched and used to you are on a traditional laptop. If you don't want to deal with that, and consider not getting an iPad and just go with a MacBook. The other part is students. If you are just the average student that takes notes and normal schoolwork, a bit of web browsing, and then that's it, it is very easy. Just get an iPad. The note-taking experience on an iPad with the form factor is amazing with the Apple Pencil, and it worked great for me. But if you come into the category that does not work with the iPad as I mentioned above, you should consider getting a MacBook. It is not that the iPad is a bad option. Even for film students or engineering students, you can get a lot of work done on it. Also, if you listen to all I said and the iPad or MacBook both seem very compelling for your workflow, and you are still conflicted, I recommend getting either one. They are both great devices and they both are going to get the job well done. There will be times that you will think that I should have gotten the other, but keep in mind that this is normal and you'll be fine with either one. So this is where I would leave it at, and these devices are the best that you can get, and getting either one will serve you really well for the years to come. Also, the amount of power that iPad now has is amazing, and it really opens the door for a new way to do work. In the future, I hope that more pro apps come to the iPad. This video is different from my usual content and is meant as a special behind the scenes on how I do things behind the scenes, and I thought of making a tech review as I'm currently interested in making that. I hope you liked it. If you do like it, then leave a comment for the algorithm to show your support and a like. And if you did not like it, then feel free to move on and dislike. I am sorry for wasting your time. Thanks for watching and see you in my next video, which will be more like my normal content.